Hello, this video is going to be about the looper algorithm on the disting NT, with particular focus on what makes it different to its predecessor on the disting EX, and also what makes it different about other loopers in general, I suppose. For demonstration, I've got this very simple patch on the NT. I've got the looper itself, and I've got a mixer to mix in some of the external signal that I'm going to be playing and recording. So that's coming in here. But let's focus back on the looper. So like the EX, you can have up to 4 sub-loopers, I guess, to do recording and looping in, which you can target individually or more than one at a time. I guess I should probably just mention I've got the various recording looping controls set up through MIDI from this Launch Key Mini. So I'm playing a disting EX off screen from the keyboard, but these buttons are automating parameters on the disting NT. Just to make it a bit easier, you could do that through CV or external pedals and stuff, which I'll show you a bit later. But yes, so 4 loopers, you can target any combination of them at once. To make the demo easier though, I'm going to respecify this back to a single looper, which makes the screen nice and big so we can see what's going on. So there we go, single looper. So the controls are fundamentally a kind of rely on 2 buttons, a kind of record, overdub, and a play stop. So to make a loop, you start an empty, you hit record, it starts recording, hit record again, it goes into play, and then you stop. And then you start, like so. And then once you're in stop, you can hold that down and wipe it. So I guess let's do some looping. And we'll overdub. Overdub some more. And so on. So far so good. Now there's lots of things you can turn on, lots of different crossfades and features to make everything a bit smoother and more ambient, because that's a particular fondness of mine personally. So let's start again. And then first of all, in the loop, we'll set the crossfade time. So this is a crossfade that's applied at the loop boundaries. So rather than having a sudden join in your loop, you can have a nice smooth glide. So let's turn that way up. And now we'll let's actually have something going on before we start this time. There we go, nice smooth join, which is rather lovely. And of course, we don't want to abruptly start and stop either. We'd like to have some envelopes. So let's do that. So now we can go fade, fade back in. And there's yet another kind of fade, which happens on overdub. So if I turn up the overdub envelopes, say to there, maybe not that far. Let's go up. I'm going to overdub something here. And you can hear now that overdub I was playing is faded into the loop rather than abruptly cutting it when I hit overdub. So that's nice. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is layers. Some loopers support undo, redo. Some loopers also have this concept of layers, which is implemented on the NT. So layers, each loop has layers basically. So what happens is every time you hit overdub, it adds a layer, and then what you record goes onto that new layer while retaining the layer you had before, and then you can switch between them. So if I guess I could use the same thing as I had. And then let's overdub another thing. Okay, so that lower selection of notes I played is a new layer. If I go back to my loop, we'll see we're currently on layer 3. So now I can hit undo, which I've mapped over here. And we go back to what it was like before I added those notes. And if you remember, my first overdub was that repeating high note. If I can undo that, go back to that. Then I can redo, and redo again. As you'd expect, there's a fade associated with that as well, which is that one, the layer fade. Turn that way up. There we go. And I don't have to use undo and redo, I could just change the parameter directly, so if I want to do that, I can. So that's layers. You can basically keep going until you run out of layers. At the moment it's telling me I've used 3 of the 6 that I've got. So this would be another opportunity to show something else, which I haven't mentioned so far, which is the overdub fade, which is yet another kind of fade. So this is like a delay. When you enter overdub, the previous material is going to gradually fade out, like it were a delay rather than a loop. So I'll turn on overdub. So you can hear that previous stuff is fading out. And I've got these new notes over the top now. So I've almost lost that material, in fact, but I can undo and get it back. Or I can go back forwards. So that's layers, rather nice for having loop pieces that evolve rather than just go in one direction, which can be a tendency. Everything just builds up, builds up, builds up, and then stops. So this enables you to go backwards and forwards, which is rather nice, I think. A couple of controls I've not mentioned, I realise, are the reverse and octave down. So let's look at those. Reverse goes into reverse, as you'd expect. And go back forwards. Octave down goes an octave down. Octave down reversed. There we go, so that's all very nice. And you can record when you're octave down and reversed, in fact. Go into overdub. So now if I go back to normal and octave up again, those things are going to get twice the pitch. Like so. So, like on the Disting EX, you can synchronize the looper to a clock. You can choose to synchronize it to a clock input or to MIDI clock. I'm going to use MIDI clock from my FH2 over here, and I'm going to have it clocked to 1/1 whole notes or whole bars. So if I set my FH2 going, and I've got a little trigger here for that bass pulse so I can hear the tempo, then I can basically, when it's clocked, anything I do like record or play is going to wait till the next clock before it does it. So you want to hit the thing slightly before the clock, and then it will wait and synchronize. So there we go. Nice 1 bar loop. So again, overdub. Of course, I can't really play in time, but that's a different question. There we go. So that's synchronized operation. If you want it to keep in time over a long period, then I suggest you also turn on the lock range thing, which basically shuffles it back into time if it goes slightly out, is likely if other things aren't sending perfectly timed clocks. So just turn that on. You're not really hearing anything. What you would hear, if I change the tempo on the FH2 slightly, it's actually locking it. In fact, if I turn on the fade time on the re-trigger, so you can actually notice it a bit more. So you can hear now it's re-triggering it to keep playing it at the same time. If I put the tempo back to what it should be, which was 120 when I recorded it, then it's still re-triggering it, which is fine. But if I turn the lock range off and then change the tempo, it's gone completely out of time with the bass pulse that you hear. But I can lock it back in. I'll turn it all the way up. There we go. The last thing I want to show you is how I've integrated the Disting NT as a looper into my own pedalboard, which I use when I play in my band, the Shell. The Disting NT is in a little 4MS pod. It is connected to this little DIY kind of breakout thing that I made, which I'll happily share the details of with anybody who's interested. Basically, this gives me ins and outs on some nice chunky 1/4" jacks, and also it gives me some sockets to connect some pedals, foot switches. So these are just regular guitar dual foot switches. There's a TRS socket on the back of these that's connected to a TRS socket there. And these are just directly feeding voltage into the inputs of the disting. So for example, I'll start from here. This one is next loop. So you can see when I press it, it's the input's actually lighting up. So that's next loop. And then let me just clear that and then go back to here. So right, this is the record. And stop recording. And this is play or stop. That's stopping it. Play again. Overdub. And then this foot switch here I've got mapped to undo. So I could attach more foot switches and have undo and redo and all kinds of stuff going on, but for my purposes it seems enough to just have that one as undo. So yeah, with that all connected together, it makes the NT into a rather nice looper. I've got specified this as 2 loopers. That seems to be what I need to do the music I want to do. It's all patched into the kind of send return system of this Fractal FM9. Yeah, so give me a minute to disconnect and reconnect everything, and I will attempt to actually play some music with this and show you.